3,
two,
1.
Monkey bars.
Hello, everybody. Woo! Welcome to the Thicc and Butter podcast. My name is Alex,
My name is Jesse,
aka Thicc.
and the butter.
This is episode, dude. What episode is this?
99.
99?
Yeah, next one's
What?
100.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute, what?
yeah.
I didn't know
I'm not even kidding. Our last one,
Fuck.
I checked because our last one was Zach. You remember doing that with Zach when we talked about Twilight Breaking
I
Dawn
did.
Part 2?
that. Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
Which
98.
will be out when this is. Okay, the cat, we need to, we haven't podcasted in a long time.
Yeah, it's been
I
a
think
month.
it's been like a month, yeah.
Yeah.
The last time we podcast together was longer because,
Oh, you mean just you and me?
yeah, because the last time
Yeah.
we did it was with Zachary. So I don't
Yeah.
even remember.
I think we
the
did
last time
Lost.
we did.
We did Lost Boys right before, which is not out at the time that we're doing this
Which-
podcast.
It was so long ago at this point. I don't even know what we talked about.
Yeah.
When I thought of it, I think I liked it.
Yeah, we liked it. We had a very civil. Hey, by the time this is out, surely Lost Boys will be out. So check out that
Yeah.
episode.
Check
We had
out
a
that.
nice civil. We had a very mature discussion on that episode, I would say.
Oh yeah, you edited the episode.
Yeah. No, we didn't have any penis jokes in that one. We didn't talk any weird
Really?
shit. We just hung out. Yeah,
Damn.
amazingly. We didn't have a
Damn.
lot of goofies. We just had a nice, mature, friendly conversation, unlike our usual antagonistic rivalry that we usually display
What?
on this medium.
Nah. I
We're
don't
usually-
think we really had any, like, now that I think about it, we haven't had any, like, arguments on this podcast. There's
No.
been a couple. but I
Oh,
don't really
actually, there was an argument on the Twilight, not between you and me, but there was a moment where Zach said something about Star Wars. I don't remember what you said.
Oh,
and then you
yeah.
said,
Oh, my God. Yeah. I remember that.
Oh, my nipples just got hard.
Yeah, I get heated about Star Wars.
Yeah, which is going to be really funny for people listening to our episodes like sequentially, because they'll have just listened to that and be like, wow, you're ripping off your own jokes from last episode.
Yeah, guys.
It's been so long.
I haven't even it's been so long. So long, and I've done so much since then that I don't even, it feels way longer than it actually was.
I know, because you went on a pilgrimage last month in June and returned, and then I went on a pilgrimage, and while I was on a pilgrimage, you were on a movie set. So like, that's a lot of shit that happened. We just
literally physically did not have time to do this.
Yeah, we didn't have any of our stuff around, and you physically like this. So like, we talked a little bit about you being on a movie set, but I still just think that's the coolest thing ever, that you were on a movie set.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so, so for the listeners out there, if they care, I was working as a PA on a feature that was shooting here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And yeah, it's a small kind of independent feature that's gonna be coming out. I think probably, I would assume, not until next year, but obviously I'll
that
let
makes sense.
everybody know on social media and on this podcast when it does come out. So if you guys can check it out if you would like. But it's called Two Lions in Pittsburgh, so keep your eyes out for that.
Oh, it's like, so Pittsburgh is actually part of the story.
Yeah, it is. And
okay.
that's actually something about it that is very cool, because well, first of all, I had an amazing experience working on it. Everybody on the set, everybody who was involved in producing it, directing it, writing it, the direct department, electrical department, everybody was
Yeah.
super, super, super cool. Made a lot of cool new friends, which is always great.
And connections,
And
friend
connections, which
connections.
is fucking awesome. Um, but yeah, it was great. But I forgot what I was gonna say. Something about the. Did you ask me a question? Something about the film. Did you say something
Yeah. No, well,
like specifically?
I do. I want to know what your best and worst like memory from like the entire experience, if you
Oh,
have
okay.
one. Do you have like
Um,
because like it sounds like because basically what you said you were doing, and for people who don't know what being on a film set, you just shot for 3 weeks, basically 12-hour days for those full 3 weeks, which is
basically, yeah.
a
Some of them we got.
crazy way to work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because I mean, usually, I mean, because this is like a small uh budget film, is
Mhm.
actually considered an ultra low budget
Yeah.
feature. So it's not even low budget. So I don't know what the exact budget of the film was, but it was very low.
Super low.
And because of that, we shot for 20 days. I was there for 15 days. I wasn't there
Mhm.
for the first 5 days. Um, but so yeah, so because of that, when you shoot like have such a small budget, and you have to pay everybody that's there, and a lot of the things you have to go quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Book
20
it.
days is not a lot of time to shoot a
No.
feature film.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
believe it. Yeah.
and so yeah, so it's just a lot of grinding and a lot of work. But thankfully, this film didn't have too many actors or too many like sets and locations. We kind of shot. We got the most out of like almost every location that we shot at. It was like a church, a temple, a school, where else? A couple houses, like Airbnb houses that the crew, rented, and we shot out of there.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, it was super long, but the best memory, um, rapping was pretty fun.
Oh yeah, when you were
Is it?
rapping with the main talent,
Oh, no. Well, that
rapping the
but
film, you mean?
rapping is in the
Yeah,
film.
yeah,
That was fun, because you put all everybody works so hard, but
yeah,
then when it's finally done, the last shot, it's such a relief and it's a celebration. So that was super fun. Um, the worst memory dealing with. I was telling you yesterday. I don't want to say his name, but there's an actor on the film that was kind of like tough to deal with and kind of annoying.
yeah,
Just kind of diva shit. So we had to deal with that for like 4 days when he was on the set. That was probably the worst thing. Everything else is pretty. I mean, some of it, you know, like anything, there's some annoying grievances and like work.
yeah,
It's like, but like I, I was joking with one of the producers one day, and I was like, dude, I feel like if you like complain like on set when you're like making a movie, I think you got something wrong, with
yeah,
you. Because
yeah,
there's a lot of worse things that you could be doing right now. Like,
yeah. Right.
if you're complaining about driving to Giant Eagle and getting fucking coffee for somebody, I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, maybe any bad day is, I mean, it's elevated to the fact that you just realize that you're like, oh yeah, I'm making movies right now.
yeah,
That's it's an amazing thing. It's not like I'm working at a coal mine or something. There's a lot of shit,
yeah.
worse shit you could be doing.
I mean, it's an interesting thing because like we've talked about this being in film, like if you want to do that as a career or be an artist of any kind, that a lot of time it's really sort of the money that you get from it is the secondary necessities to keep living the art life, because it's like it is more, it's very largely part of a lifestyle. It's part of like the fabric of your identity when you're like being a part of these things. And you were talking about like how passionate these people are about like people didn't care about the quality of the movie. They just wanted to be on set, and they worked really hard to make sure they were on set, which is like, you don't do that like for a normal job. You wouldn't want to do that unless it pays really well, but
yeah, I think what you're getting at, I think, is like a lot of these people on this particular film, it's a low budget. So it's not like a big production studio that were having a crew. Like we were. I'm not really sure how this happened, but I feel like a bigger studio might have a crew, that they work with. There's a lot of different people who work for Warner Brothers, for example, or something,
yeah,
as a grip or a DP camera department, or but this particular thing, a lot of the people on set were freelancers.
yeah,
They created their own business for themselves.
yeah,
And with that, you live this lifestyle that's very nomadic. It's very like go to one set, go to a set, do another, wherever that fucking thing is. I mean, I know the script supervisor on this film, like the next day or next couple days, like drove somewhere completely else and work on a set there. You know,
wow, yeah,
like I mean, they live this lifestyle that's really interesting, but all for the love of making movies. I mean,
yeah,
you know, it, it's amazing to see. It's not like um, I don't know. It's very inspiring. It's watching people actually doing it. The grind of it, is very, very infectious, and it's very
yeah.
cool. You want to be a part of it, and that's how you get things done, man. Like if everybody on set is enthusiastic and wants to be there, you're gonna
You
get
get stuff
the
done.
movie done. You gotta move when you're on set. You gotta be
Yeah.
efficient.
It
Um,
with the atmosphere after it sounds like you had a really positive
I
experience with
did,
it,
yeah.
like an overly positive experience with it. And like, do you feel like being someone who's considered like you considering having go into the industry, just after having this experience, does it feel like it's like it's kind of like an accepting reality, like a hard work, but like this could be my life? Or is it just kind of like, this would
Yeah,
be
that's the
awesome, this
thing
is really
where I'm
cool?
like trying to like kind of grapple with. I don't know, like I don't know yet. I mean, I had such a great experience, but I don't know if like I want that to be my lifestyle.
Yeah,
I don't know if like that. The thing is, like, um, if I did that, you wouldn't do it for your whole life, obviously.
hmm,
But it's working towards something. But um, I don't know yet. I really don't. It's it's only one experience. I would definitely like to do it again. You know,
yeah,
like I would definitely like. I don't know if I got lucky. With the group of people that I was working with. And
right,
like how great everybody was. I might have just got lucky. I don't know. I would
yeah,
like to do
yeah.
it like a few more times and see if like is it always like this? I mean, probably not. But
I
um,
I would imagine that like the information that you hear is that most of the time, like it's worth doing for one way or another. Like there might be bad experiences, but either through like the fulfillment of the job or something like that. Like even if you have like bad experience with people, like you said, you're still going to be on set, and it's going to be
yeah,
like, that was awesome, if it
right.
really jives with you. Now, I doubt you'd want to be a PA continuously.
Well, no
I
one
feel
does.
like, yeah, but that's what that job's for. It's to get you
Yeah,
in, and then you do something else. You go up the
right.
ladder.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I also did realize though, like, I mean, being on set too is like if if you don't like anybody and like no one is cool, like you will have a horrible time. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely it is dependent on the people that you're around. But for the most part, I mean, the only people who were a little strange were the actors. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is. I mean, I feel like if you do work on things like that, everybody understands that. Where you have to
Yeah.
keep morale up to like because making a film is so fucking hard, and
Yeah.
like it's so much planning that goes involved in it, and you have to you have to keep everybody happy on set. And it was
Yeah.
really interesting to watch the producers run a set. Like it's really impressive. Like I don't think people really talk about that much, so, like how important a producer is really.
Yeah.
Um, people like one of the big things that I kept thinking was like, you know, people think like making movies is like this like magical thing, like where it's just like oh we got money and we made this thing. It's like people don't realize that there are multiple departments and like hundreds or like in our case like 30 to 40 people coming together and working like a machine to like
Yeah.
getting this thing done. Like from the art department, the camera department, the production team. Like it's amazing to see all these things work together and to make the vision come true
Yeah.
on this director or the writer. And I don't know. Sometimes I think people don't give enough credit to people like that. You know, I really
Yeah.
don't because I think everyone praises the director and things like that. But I love Paul Thomas Anderson so much. I think he's a fucking genius. I can't believe we haven't talked about one of his movies yet. But
Yeah.
if
Wow.
you read any interview or he always talks about his cinematographers, his script team, his script, the crew that he works with, because that's really what gets it done. Because
Yeah.
everybody has to have a job. Like the director can't do everything, the producer can't do everything. It's
Yeah.
and that's like another thing that's like crazy about producing and stuff like that is when you're producing a film, you are building a team. Like you
Yeah.
have to build a team to with the right personalities and the right people that would get along together and work together.
Yeah.
And what's secondary is the fucking film. It's like
Yeah.
it's let's get the right people together to make this thing happen. And
Yeah.
like it was an amazing thing to see that happen. Because in college you don't get that at all. Like,
Right.
in some way you kind of do, but here it's just so fascinating to see the different departments, like, just how they work together and how, like, well planned everything was beforehand, you know? And
Yeah.
we've said this before, but, like, filmmaking is it's problem solving. That's
Mhm.
all it is. Like, you come in obviously prep with a shot list, all these things, but there's going to be problems every day, and you have to find the right people to adapt to those problems, and that's
Yep.
what makes a good crew and a good filmmaker. Someone who can really adapt to those onset problems that are
Yeah.
inevitable. You know,
Yeah, I was. Reminding me of the Quentin Tarantino Joe Rogan episode, which I thought
which
was
was
really really phenomenal.
it was
Uh,
good, but I had a lot of
yeah. Well, we can go
qualms
into
about that.
we can go in the qualms, but let me like the one thing that I was struck by with that like Quentin talking about his career and the way he worked is this sort of criticism you have of the perception about movies, because on one
Yeah.
hand we've talked about the criticism of movies being like just like cookie cutter schlock,
Hmm.
which is just like too overly produced. But at the same
Right.
time, a movie is a collaborative process, and it gets kind of confused when we talk about these auteur directors like Quentin Tarantino. But what really struck me about the way he talked about making movies is that he took a lot of personal credit in terms of the script, and because he did that.
Well, right.
But
Yeah.
then
Right.
when he was talking about a movie, it was way less like I did that, and way more him talking about like I conducted this, you know, like I was the leader of this orchestra, but the orchestra played it, you know. I
mean, it's basically being a director is like basically like you are more concerned about like the actors, the performances, but like there's so much prep that goes into like the shot list and all the things, and the cinematographer is responsible for that and all these things. But when you're the director, what you're really doing is keeping morale up. That's what you're doing. You're keeping this machine. You're putting oil in it. You're making it go and kind of solving problems. But there's department heads in every department that are keeping the morale up of the art department or the grip department. You know, it's, but it's cool. A movie set is really bizarre. It's not it's not your typical kind of working environment, you know.
But it still is like your point too, is that it's not like this magic point of like this inspiration where that just spills out of you. It's also a very organized working machine, you know.
And that's why like it even just watching this, so like I was on set a lot and watching the scenes play out. I mean, making a movie is so hard because you know you have like all the. That's why there's so many not good movies because there's so much to deal with. Like making something that looks professional and feels professional, it's a lot of work, man. And like some people just like even like I have so much more about admiration for like these bigger films too, like these like the Marvel films and shit. Cause I'm just like these people who work on those movies must be maniacs, like workaholic maniacs that are just so efficient and so just to get that shit done. And actually, I mean, this was hard, and this was like a fucking small drama. Think about like an action movie. You know, like unbelievably hard. The amount like so much danger is involved in that. Like I couldn't even begin to imagine the stress that I would feel if I was a producer on like a John Wick movie. I would be stressed every fucking day that someone's gonna get hurt or you know like it's a lot. It's super impressive.
And the other weird thing about
and
movies
it's
as
even
a
more impressive
medium,
when that a movie like that comes out and it's fucking great, like John Wick. And it's like, holy shit, we made something really fucking good. You know?
it's also weird with movies because you have this relationship with money that's different than a lot of other art forms, because to be able to get a feature off the ground, like you were talking about it, and when we're talking about budgets, like a small budget movie is $1 million, which is a lot of money, but in terms of movies and like what you're talking about, all the movie parts is not that much money.
It's not
And for
at all.
you, like your micro budget might be in like the $50,000 to $60,000 range or less than that,
Or like,
which again,
right.
which is more money than as an individual might seem like a lot, but it's like this really small amount of money to get this thing going off the ground. So it's really weird with feature films to think about how like how much money needs to be invested into that. Like a starting director needs to invest 50,000 to $1 million to be able to practice being a director. That's really weird and crazy to be able to do that.
Right.
And you have to do it again, figure out a way to do it again.
Well, it's not even like investing their own money or I mean, one of the like things that I was talking to the producers about was like how like if I were to make a short, like what would I do? And what they told me was so fascinating because it was like the advice that they gave me was basically like you should just try to make something on your own and don't be afraid to ask for money. Like, and that, with her telling me that was so interesting because she's telling me that you'll be surprised how many people are willing to invest in you if there's passion and there's something involved. Some people will be willing to give you money to make this thing. And
is she saying like people like you're within your like your family unit or just people who are investors,
investors, all those things. And which is fascinating and like to do that, and then make something, and then it is hopefully good or get some film festival, accolades. You can hopefully connect to more people, and they'll give you more money to make your next thing.
Yeah,
So
it's a fascinating process, but like if
yeah,
you, especially because here's the other thing too, is it's like even if like a movie, which is what this is what's really cool about the internet, because we have this sort of ability to appreciate more than what the product just is, because of like the behind the scenes and the intimacy of getting to know like the creators. Like you can have a bad movie, but you had a great experience, so maybe people
yeah,
don't like this movie, but now if they saw like the behind the scenes or got to know those people, they might
yeah,
connect with that, and then they would have an appreciation of the movie that might not be the movie, but like
right.
what went into it,
Well, yeah,
and
that's the
that's
thing. Is like that's
the
what
passion behind it.
people would talk about. Like I'll talk to the sound guys or the grip guys, and I'll ask like, "So, how do you think this movie's gonna turn out?" And like, they'd be like, "I don't know."
Yeah,
but it's like they would all say like, "Dude, I'm having a great time. The experience is great. I'm learning a lot." Another thing the producers would tell me is like, any like project that we would work on, I don't think the question shouldn't be, was it good or did you like it? When you're done with the project, the question should be, what did you learn? You know, like what, instead of like being
yeah,
like, did you like the project that you work on or was it good? The question should always be at the end of it, okay, what did I learn with that one?
yeah,
You
that's
know,
great. Yeah, that's
um,
great.
and yeah, so my first experience was great. Even though I wasn't, really on the creative side of it, I still felt like I put my stamp on the movie, which is cool.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'll
really
be in the
cool.
credits, so
Yeah,
you can check
yeah,
that out.
yeah.
Um,
What a fucking resume thing to put on. I've been on a feature movie. I've been a part of
yeah,
that.
I'll get on a feature film. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
um,
super cool. That's
yeah,
super cool.
I'll be labeled as the truck PA. So when you
Hell
guys see the
yeah,
movie, I'll be in the credits.
yeah.
I may or may not be dancing also in the credits.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
because we shot like there's a scene in the movie. I didn't tell you what it's about yet, but
No.
I guess we can tell it, whatever. But there's a fashion show scene, and when we shot that, the director wanted the whole crew to like put on silly like outfits that they had there, and
Yeah.
like jump in front of the camera and just do like a thing
Yeah.
and for the credits. So I might do the credits. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna get edited out
I
or I don't know.
That'd be
But
so
I
sweet.
might be in the movie.
I would buy
But,
like a steelbook edition if you're in the credits. I would. I would love that so much.
yeah, so yeah, that's what I've been doing for the past 3 weeks. It's been a
Yeah.
complete whirlwind. It was
Yeah.
very, very fun. Um, but weird, funniest part too is that where we shot, like most of the film, was like the exact place that I used to deliver to with Amazon all the time,
That's
which was really
hilarious.
weird. Yeah, it was pretty funny. It was like the same area.
Wow, that's
Um,
bizarre
it
as
was
fuck.
bizarre, man. Like bizarre. Like actually, what was really weird is the first house, one of the first houses that we shot at,
Yeah.
I delivered to like multiple times.
Wow.
That was pretty weird.
What the
Um,
fuck?
but yeah, so that was weird. But yeah,
Jeez.
but yeah, so I'm ready to go back to podcasting and
Yeah. Well,
making
okay.
music,
I have
fucking hanging
I'm
out,
I'm
finding the
curious.
next job, whatever
I'm
the fuck I'm gonna
curious.
do.
I'm curious what your qualms with the Joe Rogan Quentin Tarantino podcast were.
Oh, it was more with just Tarantino himself.
Oh,
Like I think that I love Quentin Tarantino as a filmmaker, and as a guy, I kind of really don't like him.
sure.
I think that he is really narcissistic and um to an insane degree. Like there's one part of the podcast that a lot of people have been talking about, and it's related to the Bruce Lee controversy.
Oh yeah.
In the um in the film. And before I say like my opinion of that, like why So what I love what's fun Hollywood. It's one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. I think it's a masterpiece. I don't care
Yeah.
what people say. I don't really know the consensus of that movie, to be honest. I don't know if people like it. I don't know if people hate it. I don't really know. I always get really weird responses when I talk about that movie to friends or family or
It's
whatever.
I think it's too
Um,
fresh still to really have
sure.
solidified.
But my opinion about that Bruce Lee scene, and when it came out, there was controversy about how Bruce Lee was portrayed in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I always thought that the controversy was that he was portrayed as a dude who could get beat up by a stuntman. And I
Yeah.
always thought that controversy was really dumb because that's the joke of the movie. Like, that's the fun. Like, that was fun to me. Like, oh, wow. Like, Bruce
Yeah.
Lee, like, this stunt guy could beat up Bruce Lee. Like, that's funny. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I thought
Yeah.
that was a funny twist and, like, why people got so upset about it.
Yeah.
Now, I get more of the controversy. And Tarantino's response to that controversy in the podcast was honest to God, mind blowingly fucking mentally uh, R worded.
Really?
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you mean like the part? Do you mean like the part where he was like doing this? Like where? What part of it?
okay, so in the movie, the controversy really was that how like Bruce Lee was portrayed in the movie was which was like hating stuntmen, you know, and being like a dickhead basically
Yeah.
on set. And when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, I thought that this was just like a joke, but Tarantino like in the podcast like doubles down and cites all these things that led that he believes that Bruce Lee was an asshole to American stuntmen and all these things.
Yeah.
And he is bold faced lying. Like there are
Oh.
look it up, it's pretty weird. Um and there are just tons of false things that he says is complete lies.
Oh.
There's
Okay.
been tons of articles since that podcast came out about people just disputing the shit out of almost everything he says about the Bruce Lee controversy.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought that was incredibly weird. That he would hear this maybe one story from this book that he cites and run with that and basically
Yeah.
double down that Bruce Lee is a dickhead, the American stuntman, which was completely false. Like there are so
Wow.
many stories, publications that to prove that is not true.
Yeah.
For Tarantino to double down on that was so weird. It sounded like he had some vendetta against Bruce Lee. It was so bizarre. Um,
Yeah.
so that part of the podcast is really fucking weird. And then another part that I'm glad that Joe even like touched on was his relationship with Harvey Weinstein. I thought that was uh I thought Tarantino's responses to that were pretty fucking weak and kind of tiptoed around the fact that he would buddy with Tarantino or Harvey Weinstein all the time. They were
Yeah.
good friends.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty who fucking knew, man? Like who fucking knew? There's
Yeah.
no way
Well, I mean,
that he didn't know.
he said that on the
Yeah.
podcast that he knew.
Yeah, but it's just like hearing that, I was just like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, I don't know. Like, I just like him. If I don't know, I'm not in that position, but if I fucking knew that he was a rapist, I think I would. I don't
Yeah.
know, do something about it. But I understand he's the guy who made his movies and he doesn't want to step on his toes. It's a sticky situation, but
Yeah.
I
I
thought
mean,
kind of that situation was a
well,
little weird.
yeah.
But
And I mean, and that I don't disagree with you. I think he should have I mean, I think that
it's
he
a good
should have
podcast. I still like.
yeah.
He's fascinating to talk to or like
Yeah.
hear about. I mean, brilliant. He's a fucking encyclopedia, brilliant guy.
Yeah.
I just
Well,
think he's a weird dude.
I think those are astounding criticisms. I think those are really good. And I didn't know. I'm glad you mentioned that about the Bruce Lee thing, because I didn't know there was
you
so
should look it
much
up. It's
that
pretty,
came up about.
I honestly didn't think. I thought it was pretty interesting what he was saying, and I believed Tarantino. I was like, wow, like, okay, maybe he was, but yeah, like, I was on Twitter and all of these people were like responding to it, and Phil Twitter was just like, this guy is fucking bonkers, and they like, I read all these things about it that were just like, wow, this dude is just lying.
I mean, Quentin Tarantino really seems like kind of like the film fan conspiracy theory nerds before like there was the internet to really fact check anything. And since he was probably smarter than most of the people he's been around, he just kind of assumed that he was right most of the time. But you can't get away with that in 2021 when you get your shit fact checked all the time. I'm not that really makes a lot of sense. Like now that it's
rising. And it doesn't like discredit anything that the film's still great. I still interpret it that is whatever, but
I think the way you're approaching it is 100% reasonable, and I think the Bruce Lee's controversy is stupid, but what you're talking about is 100% reasonable, because what you're talking about is the personal vendetta Quentin seems to have with Bruce Lee, and how unfounded and ridiculous and narcissistic it is to have that kind of thing. That's totally appropriate to have that personal problem.
Yeah. You can even tell that in the podcast that Joe is like, okay. Like, he's trying to be like, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell that Joe
I know.
Kind of a little, like, confused.
How much do you know about this, really?
Like, because Joe, I think, like, I mean, if anybody would know about Bruce Lee,
Joe probably would.
Probably, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but the other thing about the Bruce Lee controversy that I always found kind of silly is just like, why are you taking this movie so personally? Because it's a work of fiction, you know? And it's like,
the controversy comes from his daughter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what sparks it, is that his daughter was really upset about the movie.
Yeah.
And I get it. You know, you see your dad portrayed in a way that he was not. And that would be hard to watch, you know?
Yeah.
And like to see your dad portrayed as this farce, you know?
Yeah.
And like, to me, I thought it was a joke, you know, it's silly. Like, Bruce Lee's fucking awesome, you know, Enter the Dragon's fucking badass. I still love Bruce Lee. No one's gonna watch that and be like, "Oh, Bruce Lee's such a fucking," you know.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if they're not watching Tarantino's movies correctly. But I get it. You know, when there's somebody related to Bruce, you know, is upset about it, like that's gonna become controversial because you upset the Lee family. You know, that's not cool. You know.
Yeah. But to me, that's I get like, I kind of agree with what Quentin said on that point. It's like, I have sympathy for how she reacts, and I'm sorry I offended you on that ground, because it's like personal to you. But it's like the whole argument about it is just like nothing. You know, it's just like, what do you want to do? What do you want to make happen? What is the problem? There's like no problem. She got offended. I'm sorry.
Well, I agree with that. But his reasoning is fucking crazy. And you're like, okay, now you just sound like a dickhead.
Yeah.
Because now you're just like.
But then that's not a problem with the movie. That's a problem with Quentin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like,
and that's what I think. Great. And I think I agree with you on that point, where it's just like, okay, yeah, sure. I think you've convinced me about a factor of like a question of like a negative and unfortunate quality of an artist who makes these movies I still adore.
Yeah,
but like, I still feel like that's the thing that we're on agreement upon. It's just like, why does this affect the movie at all? Just like shit on Quentin, you know? Like, send it his way. Like, don't like leave the movie alone.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that was pretty interesting podcast. You know, I've heard a lot of those stories. He's done so many interviews and podcasts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. Like, you know, He's an interesting guy. So
Yeah,
I
he's
think
a
if
weirdo
you
for
like his
sure.
movies, definitely check it out. Check out any like kind of long form interview that he does. It's remarkable how many like just encyclopedia he is about
Yeah,
film. It's kind of weird.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's like, is this all you do?
yeah.
You just watch movies?
And I
But,
think it is. Yeah, it sounds like it is. It's really interesting. Like the Joe Rogan is a really interesting podcast for like giving a platform for having these people who have shaped culture as we know it
oh
and
yeah,
putting them on a platform just to like hear them talk as humans is just a
right.
really fascinating experience.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Like what if we
exactly.
could just like have coffee with Nelson Mandela or something like
That
that, or
fucking
George Washington,
bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what's like that's George Washington is
Well,
probably a pretty questionable fella. He owned slaves. Can you
especially
imagine a
now.
question? Imagine a conversation with George
Actually, George
Washington.
Washington, any president up until like Lincoln.
Yeah,
We
yeah, 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 yeah,
all had slaves, man.
yeah. That'd be a wild conversation. So, what are these black people doing walking around?
Well, that's why
George,
I keep saying, like, I think that,
George.
like, I think politicians should do more podcasts, not just
Yeah,
Rogan, but like any podcast where they,
yeah,
where they, where you can actually hear these people as human beings, and not
yeah,
just like sound bites, and like policies. It's like we should be voting on, is this guy a good person?
yeah,
Like, a 3 hour conversation, it's hard to put on a front for 3 hours with
yeah.
no edits and no nothing. You really showed who you are.
Yeah, that's a really interesting that makes me think of a really interesting situation because if we like get in a situation where which I think we're going in that direction where we're talking about this with like the potential of the internet where people get connected based on passion based things. But we have
So
a lot of people who are kind of assholes or are extreme assholes like Harvey Weinstein or monsters like Harvey Weinstein,
yeah.
and it's like but they are still participants in like these groundbreaking revolutions of like art making, so it'd be interesting to see.
Oh,
That's
Harvey
how cultures,
Weinstein is one of the greatest producers of all time.
and it's interesting to think about like what's going to happen to our culture if we can weed out people like that, like are
Yeah.
we is the general like niceness of society
Well,
going to rise? Like I
I
don't know,
mean,
that's a really interesting
probably.
thing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, well, that's a whole question about like cancel culture, right?
Hmm.
Where it's like the idea of trying to get rid of every negative thing in the
Yeah,
world that anybody said. You're not
but
allowed
like
to say anything.
here's
An
okay.
extreme version of that.
But here's the question actually that I think I'm thinking about is like, is it worth, and I think the answer is yes, I think it is worth it to sacrifice a few masterpieces to make it that the general like goodness of people is higher.
100%.
That's an
One
interesting
thousand
thing.
percent. You can
Yeah.
make a masterpiece without being a dickhead.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Of
That's the
course,
point of that's like our gener, but that's revolutionary for our time period. You
it's
see
our
like you see what I
generation, but
mean?
there's also a level of extreme uh versions of
Yeah.
that are very scary.
Yeah.
That are very like you can't say anything, and if you say
Right.
you make a joke about a gay guy, you
Yeah.
make a joke about a black guy,
Yeah.
or anything, it's it's a good like the mentality of it. You're right, is there and it's good. The idea of like people who are committing crimes and getting away with it should not be working in the film industry or working. They should be
Yeah.
in prison. They
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
locked away.
As
But
criminals, rightfully.
it gets hairy when you talk about people who maybe made a bad joke, in the past, 10
Right.
years ago, or
Right. Right.
that's like there. I forget who said it, but there's a great uh quote that I think Chappelle said it. I don't want to. I think so.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but he basically was asked. Somebody was asked like, and this stuck with me hard, where it said something to the extent of, um, "Do you regret things that you've said in the past?" And he said to the extent of like, "Listen, like I'd rather be like a a different person, than the same person for my whole life.
Yeah.
We want to change, we want to evolve,
Yeah.
and like so, I like giving people chances. If you said like when Twitter just started, people were saying wild shit, crazy shit, because they
Yeah.
didn't know what to do. They were like making these crazy jokes, on Twitter, and but you change. The world changes so rapidly, and like you could say retard 10 years ago. You could.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you
Right.
can't. Apparently, you can't say it anymore.
Yeah.
You could say faggot 10 years ago. You
Yeah.
could. You
Yeah.
actually could.
Yeah. Normal
Um,
conversation.
Now you can't. The world changes so fast,
Yeah.
and because people just that's just how our society works. Like it's just we read things. It's interesting. Language
Yeah.
and stuff like that is so fascinating. But
Yeah. Yeah. I
like,
mean, I think what you're kind of talking about is like this problem of trying to create these inner qualities of having like a sense of like what's good, which is a difficult thing because it's not an objective quality to know what's good and being
no
a good
one is
person.
perfect.
No, but there's also the
Like,
problem with this cancel culture thing that it's like it's on the verge of oppressive censorship too, and it's
one
like,
hundred percent.
and that's like
Yeah.
that's
No,
not good,
It's
that's
not
bad.
on the verge of it. It
It
is.
is.
It's
Yeah,
already.
it
We've
is.
had these fucking crazy situations that have already happened, like the Kevin Hart situation, which I still think is one of the most bizarre things that has ever happened in like the entertainment industry. It is one of the craziest things.
Yeah.
I
You
will
mean
never.
that's the Oscar
Yeah,
situation,
I
right?
will never
Yeah.
forget that. Never. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's like everybody is so scared to say anything, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I love, like, it's so funny because, like, I just think about how big, like, comedy podcasting is now, like YNH and Rogan and all
Yeah.
these things. They're fucking huge. You know
Yeah.
why? Because people want to hear things. They want to hear crazy shit. You
Yeah.
know, it's all about intent. And there's only what we're talking about is such a small percentage of people. Like some people might get mad at Segura for saying a crazy joke, but guess what? He also just sold out a giant theater tour across the whole fucking country.
Right.
Like what? Like it's just the internet makes things so much louder than they actually
Right.
are. You
Right.
know, and so, like, maybe this cancel culture thing really isn't real. You
Yeah.
know, it's only real in some when it actually is real when
Yeah.
like you're a pedophile, you're a rapist, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's
but
interesting because like the effect is like because it's really what it's worrying about is how you will be accepted in the broader public and
yeah,
like getting more clout or getting more progression. But there's always been people who have been dramatic, like punk music or underground
dude,
like art and stuff. It's
yeah.
always against, you can always just do what you want and not care what
Do
people say.
do people not understand like that? This conversation is just so fucking like you're so right. It makes me so crazy.
Yeah.
Like I would consider myself more on the left, you know, but people that are so far on the left, they are crazy people. Like the
Yeah.
idea that like the, some of the biggest artists in the world and artists or like they go against the norm. They go against like pop music was massive. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
so fucking big. Like it became pop music at one time. Like
Yeah.
Nirvana was pop music. So
Yeah.
many people now that wear Nirvana shirts, they're lately laughing. Like, I don't listen to pop music. You have a
Yeah.
fucking Nirvana shirt. Like, Nirvana is pop to the fucking max, bro. Like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
they were one of the biggest bands in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like people love that stuff. We are attracted to people who are willing to go to have the balls and the cojones to say, "Fuck this world that we live in. This is all fucked up. I'm gonna make music about it and have. I'm gonna put my fucking thoughts out there,
Yeah.
and everybody fucking agrees." You
Yeah.
know, Nirvana was huge. You know,
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
things. Pop music was huge. The Clash was huge. Rage Against the Machine, which is
Yeah.
literally a group that literally was talking about so many different political issues at the time, were massive. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Kanye West is someone who is so against the norm and so just rebellious. He is maybe considered one of the best artists the of our time. You know,
Yeah.
and that's like you can dislike him or I'm right, you know. It's just
Yeah.
like history has told us that that is correct, you know.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. One second. I'm all fired up now. I just don't want like all this cancel culture and all that shit to stop people like that,
Yeah.
like to take
Well,
risks and shit, you know.
what it will stop is it will stop the people who are normies, people who
Yeah.
are too scared to do anything anyways, and the people who they already
Well,
don't
that's just
care. They
yeah,
already don't
exactly.
care.
Yeah.
But
Right. Yeah. Right. Right.
I mean, the thing that also that I think is in defense of maybe not cancel culture, but maybe the Me Too movement at the beginning, is that the beginning of this shit, before it's kind of turned into more of the nitpicky variety that we see nowadays, it did change
Oh
the
yeah.
world, right? It totally
Yes.
changed the
Yeah.
world. Like we live
Oh
in a
yeah.
different, and so it's like it was an important part of our history to have that moment, and we're just gonna have to figure out what the next evolution is after that,
Yeah.
because it's like we just like this. I don't know. We'll just have to see, man, because it's like we
Yeah.
don't want to silence people. We don't want to
Like
silence
I
good
honest to
art.
God, I honest to God, like I think this conversation is just like I think it will never stop. I think there are people.
Yeah,
I mean, I think like if this is just like an annoying shit, you know, it's just like an annoying thing that like the internet kind of like deals with, you know, where like Tyler the Creator on his newest album has a great song about this very thing called
yeah,
Manifesto, where it's just basically about how he feels about cancel culture and how weird it is for like this iconic person to navigate these things. You don't know what to say. You don't know how to say it. You don't know what to support. It's this weird tiptoe
yeah,
effect where you don't want to get canceled, but at the end of the day, it's basically like fuck you guys. I'm gonna do
yeah.
whatever I want to do. You know,
And it's also
I'm
I
a good
just
person. I'm not gonna. You know what I mean? Like
and to a
it's all about
certain
believing in yourself. You know, and the
yeah.
intent. You know.
I've found that the most success I found in my life, which I think you'll agree with me, is just to be authentic to myself too. And like
Yeah.
living in a culture like that is well, and like this is really weird because you're thinking about performing in the right way. And it's just like
Yeah.
I'm not performing. I don't want to live my life trying to perform something accurately. I just want to exist as me. And that can be like a really that's a really weird thing when you try to think about that in terms of um I don't know, being politically correct and stuff, and
Well,
all of that.
it's really fascinating to like to you go to college and you meet people. It's really fascinating to see like how many people like do feel like that they are putting on a performance. You know,
Yeah.
some performing aspect to. And I think everybody is to some extent, to some, you know,
At least when you're
social situations, especially when you're young, you know.
Between the ages of 18 and 21, you are because you
Right.
don't know who you are yet.
Exactly. And so, but it's interesting because you totally see through it, you know. And
Yeah.
it's like it's rooted in this like what you should say, you know, and like in some situations you probably should say the thing that you should say, but in most situations I find to just be authentic and just say what you think because
Yeah.
you're just gonna feel better, you know. You're just gonna feel better like after
Yeah.
that interaction with that person. Like I've just been a lot more like if somebody said like well, I don't want to talk about this, but recently I was hanging out with some friends of mine,
Uh-huh.
and a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time said something really wild
Yeah.
that maybe 10 years ago I maybe would have just brushed it off and then it annoyed me in the sleep and I would have slept that night because I
Yeah.
didn't. Now I zero fucks given. If
Yeah.
somebody says something that is just out of line or absolutely insane, I will say something. I will
Yeah.
confront them and I will say something because I just makes me feel better. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and being afraid of like I'm not afraid of confrontation when I know that I can defend myself and that
Yeah.
what you're saying is absolutely insane. You know, um, but I just feel better when I do that. You know,
Yeah.
especially you don't have to. I don't do that. You don't have to. Most people are nice. Most people are easy to deal with. You don't have to do that. But
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because when you're put in a situation like that, American society has put you has created a mindset in its citizens that you're in you need to go into combat. Where like I feel like what it is it's just like whoa, that's not what my worldview is. Where the fuck are you coming from? And then you check and
yeah,
see it's just like, am I wrong or are you fucking like a fuck? And like most of the times you get enough experience to like sometimes like in this situation I learned something when you were talking about Bruce Lee. I had an opinion I made about Quentin Tarantino. I didn't do research, but then you added to my perspective
yeah,
of saying, "Oh, I
right,
didn't know that," and I
right,
added to myself. But
right.
like, but in a different situation,
That's
you
how you
know,
talk to people.
yeah. But in a different situation, you go against like someone who like calls someone like I don't know, something offensive, a slur or something, and
Right.
be like, why did you do that? And
Yeah.
hopefully
Right.
you can like either just like get them out of your life, feel better because you stood up for your values, you
Yeah.
feel more yourself, you've helped
Yeah.
out a fellow person who's been slurred,
Yeah.
or and
I
maybe you change the mindset of that person.
I kind of like even like now though I like when I talk. I mean, I talk to so many different types of people, especially working on this film. There are so many different types of opinions and political
Yeah,
beliefs or
right.
whatever. You know, I'm trying to just kind of like have conversations with people and not really like
Yeah.
judge them in a way because they
I
are
think that's great.
people and
That's great.
I just want to like learn things. I'm just curious about different perspectives and I don't want to like bring in my own or like I do but like not be I think when I was younger it was definitely more like if somebody didn't like a movie that I absolutely loved bring back a film. If somebody didn't like a movie that I liked or something or that I loved, I would get really like defensive about it.
Yeah.
But now I'm at this point where I just am like more honestly I'm excited for that. Like I'd
Yeah.
rather hear somebody there's a more interesting conversation. It's a way more
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
than like yeah that movie's fucking dope. Like I would be more interested in talking to somebody and be like, The Shining is shit. And I'll be like,
It's like
huh?
what why?
Please tell me why, you
Yeah.
know? Because, I like shit like that. It's like I like those people. You're going against the norm of something that
Yeah.
is no is considered great, but you obviously feel strongly that this is garbage. I would love to hear it. And sometimes you hear their response, and you're like, okay, you're just doing this because
I'll move on. Yeah.
yeah.
Not worth my
But
time.
sometimes you're like, wow, like that's interesting that you genuinely
Yeah.
have a opinion on why this is bad, you know.
Yeah, that's
But so
awesome.
I don't like to. I just like to talk to people because there's so many different perspectives, so many different backgrounds. People are different than everyone is different in some type of way, you know. And so like I don't know, it's interesting to just hear different perspectives. I think, and it adds
Yeah.
to your own experience. What you're saying, it adds to your own argument or your own.
Because to a certain degree you kind of can shoot yourself in the foot, because if you're defensive about your own personality, you harden yourself. If you're too protective
Exactly.
of your values, then you'll unintentionally cause yourself to never grow.
Yeah.
You won't challenge your inner stuff. You'll just say what you're saying is wrong and doesn't fit what I believe. But if you say, like, if you do what you're talking about, which I'm all about that, man. I think that's great. That's super sick. And it's like it's not
Well, that's
easy to
also
do that
something that I
either.
just like. Well, that's also something that I just like have learned. You
Yeah,
know, like
through
like.
living.
Well, that's the thing. Is like even talking to people now, it's like especially younger people. You know, it's like you try to like I don't know. I when I was young, I you just have to like people are you just have to live life and just talk to people and just kind of be observant of like when you know yourself and like what you are more willing to like analyze yourself in some way. Like you got out of a situation, you're like, oh, how do I deal with that? You know,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
hard for people. You know, but I think that
yeah.
is like the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. Just try to better yourself every day. You know, if you have some problem that you have, just try to fucking fix it. You know,
I
that's
feel
all
like
you can do.
yeah, I feel like college was the time where I learned that I needed to do shit like that, and then post college has been the time where I've really put the practice in to figure
Yeah.
out how to realize how to do that in a way that's authentic to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that's a
Well,
really important part of like becoming an adult and just living life is, I think, what you're talking about exactly.
yeah.
And a lot of
That
people
is.
miss that. That's the thing that's sad about our society and just like the world in general, is that like people just kind of stop at high school a lot of time. It's just like,
Yeah.
how did you survive
They
this
peak.
long? Yeah. But
Yeah.
do you want to talk about Fear and Loathing now?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
All
Um.
right.
So I took this movie, and I've not seen a movie in a while, and I kind of wanted to like watch something that was just like fucking bonkers, and something that I hadn't seen in
Yep.
a long time. And this is Fear Lily in Las Vegas, which stars Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro and Tobey Maguire in a hilarious role. Um, and
Funniest role ever.
and it's directed by Terry Gilliam, who's known for Brazil, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Holy shit, I'm blanking so hard with this movie.
Yeah.
Um, The Fisher King, which is an amazing movie. He's made great, a lot of great movies,
Great weird movies.
great weird movies. Um, and most notably, this is an adaptation of Hunter S. Thompson's book of the same name,
Yep.
which I have not read, but I need to. Um, and Hunter S. Thompson is a iconic journalist who who was known for something called gonzo journalism, which I, gonzo journalism is one of those things that I think I know what it like means, but I'm not. So I'm gonna look up like what the
I've read
actual
the
yeah
it's one of those things where
what
like
is the
I've read the
definition?
definition a couple of times and I
Okay,
know the definition, but I haven't read Gonzo journalism, so I don't know it.
so the gonzo journal here's the definition that comes up. Gonzo journalism is a style of journalism that features the author as its protagonist,
Hmm.
simultaneously experiencing and reporting on a story from a first-person point of view.
Yeah.
Gonzo journalism stories are often presented through the lens of social and self-critique, and usually concern little rewriting or editing. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So Hunter S. Thompson was basically, I'm pretty sure he like coined it. He might
Yeah.
have been the guy who really started that.
Yeah.
And
100%.
what Fear Lily Las Vegas is that, plain and simply, he just did a bunch of drugs
Yeah.
and went to Las Vegas
Yeah.
and would write, as he was there over the course of, I don't really know how long he was there.
Like a
It's
day
kind
or
of,
something.
I think
Multiple
it's a few
days.
days,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. A
think
few
it's like a
days.
week or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
With his, I don't know, with his attorney,
Yeah.
attorney.
Who I think is based on a real person, like a real
Yes,
friend of his.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's cool about Hunter Fox is that these are true stories. He would write these experiences almost the day he experienced them, or whatever.
Yeah.
And Hunter S. Thompson was, especially this movie, from my understanding, like, there is something so beautiful and like amazing about like what he does, where he would get like just doing this experience. He like wrote so many interesting things about the people in Las Vegas, or how, just what Las Vegas represents, and like all these things. He would write these really interesting things, and that's what this movie is based on. It's based on his experiences in Las Vegas that is based on this book,
Yeah.
which is basically the same thing,
Yeah. And
Um,
it's a fictional narrative that he sort of interjected, that's structured around these real events that he had, but he inserts these fictional characters to play
yeah,
himself and
yeah, right,
his attorney friend,
yeah, right,
and he has the liberty of doing whatever he wants around all of these real things that happen to
yeah,
him.
right. And this movie is based on that, and this movie is super iconic.
Yeah.
I would definitely think that this is one of the more iconic Johnny Depp performances.
Yeah.
And Johnny Depp he's so fucking good in this movie.
Yeah, he's
And
bonkers in this
one of
movie.
the things that, it's sad to see what Johnny Depp is turned into now,
Yeah.
but because he's an amazing actor. The
Yeah.
things that he was doing in the 90s were incredible. He's an amazing actor. He still is an amazing actor. He's just a little bonkers right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
To my
Bad bad
understanding.
bad bonkers, not
Yeah.
good bonkers.
And so, yeah, so Johnny Depp basically plays Hunter S. Thompson in this
Yeah.
movie.
Which did you know Johnny Depp and Hunter S. Thompson had a very personal
Yes,
relationship?
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Famously, they were very good friends.
Yeah.
Very good friends. And
Super good friends.
another interesting thing is that Johnny Depp also played Hunter S. Thompson in another adaptation of a Hunter S. Thompson book called The Rum Diary, that came out years later. I want to say like 2011 or
I have a
2012 or
copy of that
something.
book somewhere.
Yeah.
I've seen it a
So
few
they made
times.
an adaptation of that, and Johnny Depp stars in that. It was pretty funny. She's basically played Hunter S. Thompson twice in a movie.
That's interesting.
Which is funny.
Yeah.
And this movie is absolutely bananas. It's bonkers. It's known for being one of the craziest movies about kind of drug fueled adventures. There's been a lot of
Yeah.
movies like this, but this one is, to me, like the the best one. Um, like, because this movie was so influential. Like, after this movie came out, it seems like the visual style, especially of like these movies like this, like whenever someone would get high or have some high adventure,
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
almost feels like Fear Loathing, because
Yeah.
I think Terry Gillem captured, not that I've been on drugs or anything, but I think what Terry Gilliam did with this movie is he really captures what it's like to be on these drugs, especially LSD. That's one of the my favorite things about this movie. Probably my favorite thing is the visual aspect of this film. This movie looks
Yeah.
amazing. It is shot with this amazing frenetic energy that this movie only can really give me. Um,
Yeah.
this bizarre art style that I fucking I love the art style of this movie. It is so I don't even know how to describe it. It feels like you know he shot this movie like from the perspective of Hunter S. From the main character who's on drugs for the entire portion of the film.
Yeah.
And there's so many weird little odd things that details in the backgrounds of these sets and like all these things that just add to this psychedelic experience that you're watching.
Yeah.
It really does feel like a psychedelic experience, like
I,
a
I,
nightmarish one. But
Yeah, and I think the other factor about why, in addition to being so good at in its accuracy of the emotions behind it, it's a really incredible adaptation of the feeling of it. It
yeah,
feels like a
yeah,
really
exactly. That's yeah, exactly.
and it's hard to say for certain, like comment on this not reading the book, but
Yeah,
like what I've known about Hunter S. Thompson and stuff is that it's like I think it does a really excellent job of not just of accurately presenting the personal experience of what it was like in a
yeah,
visual form,
yeah, yeah.
and
Right.
taking those words and because one of the things I really liked about this movie is that usually when you watch a Terry Gilliam movie, it's like, well, that's Terry Gilliam, and this
Mm-hmm.
movie is that, but it's more so like, well, that's Hunter S. Thompson, like you're
Yeah,
looking at that. And I think Terry Gilliam did a really good job as an adapter because he's just like, I'm going to interpret Hunter S. Thompson and
yeah,
present his story through my style. And
yeah.
that's like,
Yeah,
it's so well
yeah.
done in
It's
that way.
definitely like not one of her movies. Period. Brazil, where that
Yeah.
when you see that movie, it is very Gilliam.
Yeah.
It is so bizarre. But this movie, it does feel like it's restrained a little bit, where
Yeah. Which
he's
is
not.
funny.
Yeah,
But you're
right,
right.
right. It doesn't feel like he's doing these the craziest visual things that he maybe could have done.
Yeah.
Um, it feels grounded in that way, but I think well, basically, I don't even know how to describe what this movie's really about. I mean, it's basically it's just Hunter S. Thompson and his lawyer are going to Las Vegas with all this trunk filled with drugs,
Yeah.
cocaine, LSD, mescaline.
Yeah.
What else is it? Heroin,
Ether.
ether. But I don't even know what that is.
I think that's
Um,
like a noble gas that you can huff or something. It
yeah,
makes you
is that the
really,
gas that they're huffing in
yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think they were going there.
They were gonna Hunter S. Thompson had a job to well, Raul Duke is the name of the character in the movie. Duke had a job
Well,
to
is
cover
it
yeah, Johnny Depp's character's name is Raul Duke.
okay? But I feel
Uh,
like I thought that was his alias. I thought because he is referred. There's a moment in this movie where he's referred to as Mr. Thompson.
yeah, where he
Um,
gets like a telegram or
yeah.
something.
So it might be Raul Duke, might be the fictional name because they check in with different names and it might
Yeah.
be his alias.
Well, I
In the
think I
movie.
think I think that the characters in the film are named that, but there's
Yeah.
this meta blending where it's like
Yes.
obviously Thompson,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
in the character. I think it is Raul Duke, the
Okay.
character,
Okay.
and Dr. Gonzo, the
Yeah.
character in
Right.
the film.
Yeah.
But they're trying to cover a motorcycle race. I think that's why they went
Oh,
to
is that
Las
why they
Vegas in the
went
first place.
initially?
Yeah, they went
Okay.
to cover a motorcycle race and then to
And then
cover
yeah.
that narcotic drug thing.
Okay.
But in
Yeah. Yeah.
between, they
So
did
he
they go ahead.
so he was just a journalist
Yeah,
that was getting who wants to get these stories, these
yeah,
bizarre stories,
yeah,
but it turns into a just nightmare because they're psychos. like they're fucking crazy people, and they
Yeah.
just did as many drugs as they possibly can. And the only way I can describe this is just it's just a series of psychedelic misadventures with Hunter S. Thompson. Like another thing I think about this movie is the narration. I usually don't like
Yeah.
narration, that much, but the way that it is portrayed in this film, I thought was brilliant. Um, because you really get Duke's like inner monologue throughout these kind of
Yeah.
experiences, and it it feels like it's funny knowing that this is Thompson, like based on a book, because it's almost like you could hear him almost like writing the book, in a way, with these
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
narration, and we're watching these
Yeah.
experiences, and then the narration is him writing the book. It might be straight from the book. I don't know. It might
Yeah.
literally be like word for word. I mean, I don't know, but
I don't know either. I would
it
like to
feels like
know
that.
more about that. And I agree. That was one of the things that I was so enthralled by, was just like this and I really liked how they played with the, this is very Terry Gilliam, how he messes with sound design, experiments with those types of things,
Yeah,
because they did like a lot of weird ADR on it
yeah,
too.
very
That
weird.
was like,
Yeah.
that added to, which I don't think was out of like bad technical
Oh, definitely
execution,
not.
obviously not, because of
Yeah,
like how exquisitely made the film is,
yeah.
but it was like they added in like this
It's also a universal film.
yeah, yeah, and it's just this, like the way that the narration is like, it's not the same kind of non-diegetic narration, or like in the future kind of narration.
Yeah,
It's very much like all existing in the same place. Like the narration is
yeah,
happening at the same time of the
yeah.
events,
It's
even
just
if it's
great.
just
There's so many great moments. Like there's this fucking like the beginning of this movie is so it's so iconic. I can't even like it is so fucking good.
yeah,
And there's this great moment where they pick up Tony Wire, and
I
when the
love
first
that.
narration happens, like he is like, "Am I talking? Was I talking this whole time? Was
Yeah.
I, And it's like it's turning this narration and like what you're saying is like this bizarre, and there's a moment when he's narrating, he's moving his mouth,
Yeah,
he's like
yeah, yeah,
talking to
yeah,
himself.
yeah,
There's this really bizarre um blending of that where like I haven't quite really seen anything like that.
yeah,
But it adds to this drug fueled experience. It adds to not hey, I'm not speaking from experience, but there's that's what it's like.
yeah,
When you're on drugs. Like you
yeah,
feel like you're especially LSD or something like that where your inner monologue feels so loud. And it feels
yeah,
like am I am I saying this out loud? Like, can
yeah,
anybody hear me? So I love that. Like, that was
yeah.
so great.
Then I think that's like one of the things that I love so much about Terry Gilliam's directing, that I think is so well executed in this movie, is that he has this knowledge and capacity for like movie making, where he takes this method of creation and that is really avant-garde, and presents it in
Yeah,
a really palpable and digestible way. So it's like, that's
yeah,
what, like, because Fear and Loathing is so fun to watch, but
so fun. It's
it's an
scary as fuck.
abstract art piece too.
Yeah,
And it's like
yeah.
it's really cool that it
This
works.
was this should be added to the list of when this movie came out. This was horribly reviewed.
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
This was
bombed.
like a critical. Yeah, no one liked it when it came out, but now it has garnered this huge cult following. And Johnny Depp's look in this movie is beyond iconic. I couldn't even like express like
Yeah.
there's a great moment in Rango where they reference this movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, right.
It's this movie's super iconic, and it just shows like we've had this conversation many times that if a movie is great, it will stand the test of time. Like people will find it, you know.
Yeah.
And this movie clearly is great. It's influenced so many things. It's uh iconic. People love this movie. You know, I you know, there's a certain type of person that you if you meet and they like movies, there's this if you talk to them, you're like, hey, do you like Fear and Loathing? They go, yeah,
Yeah,
I like
totally.
Fear and Loathing. You know, there's
Yeah.
a certain type of person that really likes this movie, but I think this movie is really entertaining. You know,
Yeah.
it's really funny, but it's really nightmarish in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There's some really
100%.
disturbing imagery in this movie, um, and especially with Benicio del Toro, who is maybe more bonkers than Johnny Depp.
Right.
He is insane in this movie.
Yeah.
And that character, Gonzo, is a fucking, he's a psycho. He's a
Yeah.
psychopath.
He's completely unethical, like
He's
has no ethics at all.
unhinged.
Yeah,
And
unhinged.
the way that their interactions are are so good. Like they're so crazy, manic, and so bizarre. Like
Yeah,
their chemistry with one another is unlike anything I've ever seen. Like, I'm
I
being
know.
completely honest. The dynamic of these two characters is so unique to this movie
Yeah.
that I can see why critics maybe didn't like this when this come out because this is so radical and weird and unlike anything that has ever been made. You know,
Yeah.
like at this time, and Hunter
Yeah.
S. Thompson is such a unique, and this movie also throws so many things at you, but you
Yeah.
might not be able to catch everything when you first see it because it's just such a complete whirlwind. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Um,
one of those things, it's one of those things where it's like people who are watching it, this is one of the things the that like I feel like Quentin Tarantino was talking about like in the change in the 90s when he was discussing
mm,
the fact of like people like the big shift about like just like fixing the problematic guy and
yeah.
like and changing it to be like that. This is one of those movies that's like if you kind of don't have a lot of experience watching films and you're used to a film that sort of is telling you a story, this is a film that is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it can be really frustrating to watch because you get to the end of it and it's just like what happened, like what
There's a
was I
lot
supposed
of
to
there's
get
a
out
lot
of
of
that?
reviews that called it like pointless and
Yeah,
stuff like
totally.
that. Well, I get it, but at the same time, like I think they're completely missing the point.
I agree.
Ironically,
Right.
and like I think what this is to me is this beautiful observational piece through the eyes of basically a fucking crazy
Yeah.
drug fueled psychopath.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's saying really interesting and beautiful things. Like there's this great moment where he's coming down off of he's never not on drugs, but he's not
He's
that
down
high.
at yeah.
And he's in they're in like kind of a city casino and he's walking around and he's observing all these people who are these older people that are
Oh
still
yeah.
chasing the American dream. They're still, you know, he's basically deconstructing the idea of a casino and how kind of interesting it is that people go and literally, you know, give their hard-earned money to possibly win more. And it's this whole business and this whole place that is, you know, built their business off of people just wanting more, you know, and
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
that
And
he observes that is so it, it's why Hunter S. Thompson is iconic, you know.
and
And I think they
I
captured that really well.
I do too, and I love in I just am so impressed with how perfect or like just tickled by how perfect Terry Gilliam was as a director to
Uh,
like beyond this. He was like the perfect pick for this
oh
because
yeah,
like
oh
the
yeah,
genius of Hunter S. Thompson's like writing is how he kind of uses like he takes real life hyper realistic observational things and makes these totally fictional metaphors like bat country, just like this weird shit that he just throws in there that's just like so astonishingly true, which I find is like exactly how I feel about Terry Gilliam's movies. It's just like it's just like, here's this fact, here's this like weird monkey doing a dance, and somehow it correlates in this really meaningful way. It's like, wow.
I love the monkey. Like, there's so many like funny, like when people turn into animals, like there's this great when Duke takes LSD for the first time.
Oh
when
yeah,
we arrive at the
hotel.
At the hotel, dude. Holy shit, that scene is so funny. But it's also very like real. Like, dude, I got kind of triggered when I saw. I don't know how they did this, but when the carpet starts moving.
Yeah, that was so cool.
That was a perfect
yeah
representation of what it's like to be on something else. And I've never seen something like that. Like up until this point. Like I don't know how they did that. Like
I don't know
amazing
either.
visual effects. But
yeah,
it is that if you want to know what it's like to take LSD or shrooms. There you go. That's what
yeah. I think that's like a good scene. Like that scene when he first comes in is like the point where I was kind of like, the scene where they're driving across the desert is so awesome, but it was like the scene where I was testing to see, is this great or is this unbelievably like campy and dumb? And it was by the point that I was at the elevator, like when we were in the hotel, that I was like, this is genius. Because like Johnny Depp is literally a cartoon. He's literally a cartoon, and he's so awesome. Because I love like when he goes up to the office and he's like having this monologue. It's just like, it's okay, just go up there, say, I need a room, my name's Raul, and he goes up, he's like, hi. It's so good. And I also like how
his movement, how he moves.
I love that.
I love it.
I love how they add in like this sound design when he's moving, where he's just going like
he like the way he talks is so amazing. Like he like mumbles basically throughout the whole movie.
Entire movie.
Yeah.
And it's not like one of those like and it's not like one of those like sometimes when you have things like that, especially trying to do a famous person, it's like the actor's trying too hard to like just do a good impression, and it's just like stupid or something like that. But it's like it's just really good. It's just really good. I really like
costumes.
it.
I love like all the things that he wears.
Which which I in the Wikipedia, I think it's allegedly that was Hunter S. Thompson's. A lot of that was which he looks like that in photos. Like it looks like he's been wearing that.
Did you catch the Hunter S. Thompson in this movie?
Yeah, I saw that scene was awesome.
That's a great moment.
Dude, that's one of the funniest scenes too, because that was a scene where he was on acid or on some kind of drugs.
And
he goes in the bathroom and he spills like the LSD on his hands, and that guy comes in while the hippie's licking it off his shirt. If with any luck, I'll ruin that man's life forever.
I love this like this guy comes in and is like, I think I ruined that man's life, because every time he walks into a bathroom, he's gonna see a flannel wearing gown. It's like so good.
Oh my god.
And so like Hunter S. Thompson like appears in that scene.
Yeah.
And like when he's like, oh, is that me? You know, there's so many great, there's a lot of scenes like that where like he just gets done with like a acid binge or whatever, and he like sees himself in like in the scene, or he like recounts like what just happened the night before. Or there's so many great like moments where the film will just basically like spiral completely out of control, and then it will like just snap, and like the room is like filled with water. And there's like shit. Like the way that like the film like they'll do this like crazy high escapade, and we won't really see it, and then but like he'll start narrating and like piece together like what happened and like
Oh
we
my God.
see
That
it.
was such a cool scene when he was doing that.
Yeah,
That was so cool.
it's really bizarre and really like striking and it's weird. Like it's just
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
one of it's like one of those types of films that I feel like comparing it to painting, it's like one of those films that's like those abstract paintings that doesn't really have a clear subject but just has this like fantastic textures and colors that
yeah,
you can't take all at once as a whole piece. You have to look
yeah,
at like each corner at a time. It's just like it's just littered with these brilliant subtleties that are just
yeah,
so cool and,
yeah,
and engaging and beautiful and
yeah,
scary.
yeah, super scary. Like Gonzo's character is just so he's so confusing.
Yeah.
But in the great in the perfect way, I think, because he's so when he's not on drugs, he's so mild mannered and he's so like collected, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when he gets on drugs, it's like
Holy
holy
shit.
like he is going to kill somebody. He's
Yeah.
going to kill somebody or kill himself. And Hunter and Johnny Depp's character like being scared of him and being like trying to like put him together is just so entertaining. Like when
I
they're
love
at the carnival when he's like
Yeah.
the carnival casino and he's trying to get off a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's so funny.
So
Or
good.
I was as the scene where they're in the hotel and he chases it back into the into the bathroom with the microphone, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
megaphone. Get back in there. Get back in there. Don't come out. I want to peek
yeah.
at the highest octave of White Bunny.
Yeah,
Throw the poster in the bathtub.
yeah, it's ridiculous. It's
Oh my
so
God.
crazy weird.
I,
But another thing that's really weird, and I don't know if this quite works in the movie. I feel like in the book it might be like more
uh-huh.
impactful, but there's some really interesting w- war imagery in this movie,
Oh, interesting.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
like related
Is
to
that
like
was that the beginning?
yeah, there's like yeah, so there's archival footage in the beginning of
Yeah.
protests, and then there's a bunch of footage throughout the film. Whenever they're basically watching TV, they're watching war
Oh,
footage,
right. Yeah, yeah.
and there's and then there's also a couple times in the movie where he talks about the the '60s and the '70s and basically the response to like the Vietnam War and things
Right.
like that.
Right.
Um, I don't know if it was like I don't really get what the point of that was
That's a
like
good point. Yeah.
in the movie. Um, but I feel like I mean he might be making a point about I don't know, just how America has changed like since the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
But like I didn't really get that with the film. Um, just didn't really translate very well to me. But like in the book, it might be like it must be in the book. You know, they
Yeah.
would you know. So it's probably more realized like in the book. But
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
movie, I felt like it was a little. I don't really get it, but it was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I always I saw it more as like a because I totally forgot about it until you just mentioned it right then. I think the way I interpreted it was more as like a visual motif, you know, that sort of made
Yeah.
sense with like the chaos of Las
Oh,
Vegas
sure. Yeah.
being
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a battleground and
Yeah.
stuff like
Sure. Yeah.
that, or the
Yeah. Yeah.
motorbike
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
like a
That'll work
visual
too. I mean, that could be it too. I like to like, you
I
know,
think
I don't know.
I'm sure though. I'm sure that in the book they go more in depth about it because like everything from that time period talks about Vietnam.
Oh,
Like
I mean, that's
everything.
yeah, yeah, makes sense. Um, so yeah, so that's an interesting thing about this movie. What else was like? I mean, Toby Maguire is in
He's
this.
such a I was so caught off guard. I didn't know he was
Hilarious,
in this at all.
so funny. It might be one of his first roles, 1998.
Yeah.
Gotta be
When did Spider-Man come out?
2002,
Wow, that's
2003.
funny.
Yeah.
So they saw him in that. It's like, do you want to be Spider-Man, Toby?
There's
Yeah,
also a movie called Pleasantville, which is a really good movie. I don't
yeah.
remember when that came out. I feel like that was late 90s too, so it might be around the same time as this.
Yeah.
But
Do
yeah,
you
he's
do you,
ridiculous.
do you feel like this movie is like I know, like, I think this movie is gonna I think this movie is kind of in like a quiet period in our culture where it's not that talked about, but I feel like this is a movie I've always heard about, like
Mm-hmm.
talking about movies and stuff. And after I watched it, it was just like so impactful and cool and
Yeah.
awesome. I feel like it's gonna have like a second moment or
Oh
something where
yeah.
people like rediscover this
I mean,
again. Like,
I think like people. I mean, whenever I go to like a vinyl store or I go to like these cool like hip places, they always have like Fear and Loathing like posters or shirts or something. I think people definitely like this movie's still talked about, I think.
yeah,
Um but yeah, I don't know. I mean probably. I mean the thing is like Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro and Hunter Thompson, I mean they're icons, and Terry
yeah,
Gillem, so I mean
yeah.
it's definitely gonna get rediscovered at some point.
Yeah.
Um
It's also funny because it's like it's a drug movie that's about misadventures, but it's also like a buddy hangout film, maybe like at
yeah.
its core. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like a nightmarish buddy hangout
I think
film.
there's also a lot of movies like this now. Like
Yeah,
there's
right.
definitely like a lot of like drug fueled like
Yeah.
movies, but they all come from this, man. Like
Right, right.
there's not a lot of like definitely not in maybe in the 70s or something, but definitely not in like I can't think of like a movie this high profile that had people just doing cocaine and fucking like I mean there is so much drug use in this
Yeah,
movie, like
it's a ridiculous amount of drug
it's a
use.
lot.
It's a lot of drug
I mean,
use.
it's hard. Like, I'm surprised. Like, probably back in the day, it was hard to get past the MPAA
Yeah.
of like how much drug use they were allowed to show.
Yeah, I wonder
You know,
because
it's a
this
really
movie,
weird moment. Is there's no like sexual thing in this.
yeah,
It's all drug use.
I don't think there's any nudity at all
There's
even.
no nudity. No.
Which
I
is
think
why
there's
it
a
got
couple
past the
like
rating system.
pornographic imagery when like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Bonzo hangs weird porn magazines on the wall, but it's like
Yeah.
not graphic at all. It's just
Yeah.
but
And there's only that weird sexual moment where Gonzo was obviously trying to like
yeah,
rape a girl,
right,
and that didn't happen, but
right,
like
yeah,
it was all that was like implied sexual assault
right,
that didn't happen.
right.
Um uh
That one was absolutely fucking wacky
yeah.
as hell because it's like implied, but it's so like it's it's so off. It's so confusing. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
it is.
is that what you're really doing, or
Yeah,
like?
yeah.
And then the best part about it is that Hunter Thompson, like, or Johnny Depp's character, like, basically convinces him that that's what he was doing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's such a dark and disturbing scene, but it made me laugh so hard because it's just
I
like him going like
yeah.
as dark as he could possibly go and basically freaking out Gonzo basically and like, running away from
Yeah.
her and leaving her. And then when they run into her on the street, they're like, "Oh fuck!" and they like drive away. And
That's so
that's
funny.
there's a great motif where they run into the hitchhiker Toby Wires
Yeah.
character again, and they're so scared and they like drive away and they run into the Lucy again and they are so frightened that they drive back away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
I do too.
But
You know, another scene I think is kind of interesting, which goes to show to me, as we're talking about it, it was another really weird scene that was just sort of thrown in there. But I'm thinking about like the diner scene that's like where Gonzo is
oh
like
yeah,
they're like sober, and it's just like a scary fucking. It's
I
like
love that scene.
nothing like
Love it.
no special effects, just like fucking disturbing. And it
Well,
like
I think it really, I think it was so like almost important because like the narration of that was so great. Where Johnny Depp was talking about Duke was talking about like go to basically North Las Vegas, where like the outskirts of Las Vegas,
Yeah.
and it was so nice to just have like some calm because dude's
Yeah.
character throughout the movie just wants silence.
Yeah.
He's just looking for like
He wants to
like
sleep and
a
write and go
moment.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this was finally the moment where Psycho is with him, so he
Yeah.
you know didn't get to have that. Um, so like I thought it was pretty important scene in the sense of like this guy is just a fucking psycho. Like
Yeah.
it's not the drugs. Like this
Yeah.
dude is just fucking crazy.
And
You know?
I think like that scene to me really communicates how that this film has more is deeper than just being an exploitation drug
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
what's it called, like a spectacle. It's not just a
Yeah.
drug
Yeah.
spectacle. It really
Yeah.
has more going on underneath it
Yeah. I
than like
think
a
so.
because it's I don't know, because it's so poetic. It's so poetic
Yeah.
and in and just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really fucking awesome movie. It's fucking it's a wild one. I honestly it's one of those things where like people was like, should I get high and watch this? I
Yeah.
honestly would say no. I
Yeah.
would I I wouldn't. This would this is like you don't need it. Like you will definitely feel high when you watch this.
I
You don't
know.
need to, and it's also very a nightmarish movie. It's not like you're watching like a fun Seth Rogen comedy. It's like
No, yeah.
this is always like this is a nightmare. It's definitely a
Yeah.
drug fueled nightmare. Got a lot
Yeah.
of fun to be had. You
Hashtag
know?
bad trip, man.
Yeah, yeah. This whole thing is just a bad trip that just won't end. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I think like most of the time, if you're going to do I think it's best to try to do movies that you're really trying to digest, to watch them under the influence the second time around. The first time around,
Yeah.
watch it like
I'm not
sober.
saying that this will never be fun.
Yeah.
You know, if you're still, but it will definitely be you gotta buckle yourself in because it's
Yeah,
not a romp. It's
because
definitely
the other weird thing about like this movie is that it's so like you're saying, it's so nightmarish, and also like
a
it's so disorienting
very
and how
extremely,
it's
yeah.
directed. It's like,
Like I might throw up. Like
yeah,
I don't know. I think I was
I
just
actually I felt dizzy after watching this film. Like I was
yeah.
like,
Oh
after I
yeah.
finished
Yeah.
watching it, I was like, I'm like dizzy.
Yeah.
I have to like sit for a second and like figure out what's going on.
Yeah. There's definitely like there's definitely intentional. You know, the
Yeah.
the visual style. This is so disorienting for a reason. They're on drugs, baby.
Yeah.
The whole movie. They're fucked up the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
It got one scene in the diner. You realize that the camera doesn't move at all. It's like
Oh yeah.
it is
Yeah, right.
like super locked on. It's like the only like lock on shots throughout the
Yeah.
whole film. Most of this
Dude,
is crooked angles, fucking bizarre.
yeah, that's true. That's really true. I that also just made me remember how like in addition to like the performance and the script and like the execution of the visuals, just the straight up composition of this movie is like
Yeah.
so gorgeous. I
Oh,
just thought it's
it's
so
beautiful. Yeah,
beautiful.
the
It's so
lighting is
gorgeous.
gorgeous. It's beautiful. The art direction, everything, costumes, the color palette of this film is just it's iconic. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
They made Las Vegas look dark and seedy, because that's what it actually is. I mean,
And and the other thing I find, this is another Terry Gilliam genius quality I think about him, is how they were able to take this movie that is totally like has no constant structure or through line through it, and make
yeah,
everything feel very consistent, like it came from the same palette, when there's
yeah,
like every scene is different from the one before it in a dramatic way,
mm-hmm,
and it
sure,
still feels really consistent.
yeah, sure, yeah, man. it's excellent.
Excellent.
Definitely
Excellent.
Terry Gillem is really fascinating filmmaker. He's made some really interesting films. This is definitely probably his most like iconic movie, probably. Like next
Yeah.
to Monty Python, probably.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, this is a phenomenal movie. It's not for everybody, you know, if you it's definitely if you enjoy Hunter Thompson and like if you know what
Yes.
this is and you know what you're getting into, I think you'll have a good time.
Yeah.
It is super fun to watch, very like disturbing, but very like what we were saying, it's very insightful. It's not just this, you know, drug fueled romp. It is very like it's a meditation on a lot of
Yeah.
different things.
And I think the other thing
You
that's
might not
really
get that, you know, you might not get that when you first watch
yeah.
it, but
Yeah. And I think the other thing I really am excited about with this film is how it's going to be so fun to rewatch many times, because once you get the grasp on like sort of the scary territory that it is,
uh
the
huh,
scary and intimidating and craziness of it, and you have some like predictability in your sort of knowledge of what the structure of the film is, it's just like I just feel like it's like this super fun experience. It's
yeah.
so just like fun and really it's like I think it's like more of a comedy than anything
Oh,
else. It's
I think
so
so too.
funny.
Yeah, I think
It's
this is
so
fucking
funny.
hilarious. Yeah, yeah, I think it's definitely super. Yeah, I would definitely call it like a dark comedy
A dark
for
comedy,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. In my opinion. But some
Yeah.
people like this thing. It's scary as fuck.
Yeah. I mean, we did.
Yeah, it's definitely both.
Yeah.
Definitely uh, some of the best horror. Some of the best horror movies actually have comedy in them, and some of the best
Yeah.
like I don't know. It's interesting. Horror and comedy is an interesting correlation that happens between the two a lot of
Yeah, it's
times.
it's it's funny that they work so well together.
Yeah, it's weird.
It seems like it shouldn't, but they do.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to
We have to say
episode
the thing. We have to say the
99.
thing. We have to say the
Oh
thing.
yeah.
What is this? What would you say this movie is? It's
Definitely
thick
thick and
and
butter
butter
approved.
approved.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes,
Now go.
ma'am. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes, everybody.
Um, yeah, thank you guys for listening. This is episode 99. That
99.
means the next one we do is fucking 100, baby.
Hondo.
100 episodes.
I can't
Fuck.
believe it.
Um,
That's like so many hours of
so that's
podcasting.
like 100.
That's 100 hours.
Oh,
Maybe 200 hours because we do 2 hours, like two
yeah,
and a
that's
half.
true.
150
Yeah,
at least.
it's a lot. A lot of us talking on the fucking internet.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we love you. Check this movie out. I don't remember what we really talk about. Cancel culture, Tarantino, being on a set, making
Yeah.
movies.
Making movies live, general checkup.
Yeah, general
Uh,
checkup.
um, episodes are gonna be out again. I'm gonna start making tunes again.
Yeah, man.
Releases are what it kind of feels.
I think
It's probably
because we hit
redundant.
100, we might start trying to, I don't know, rebrand a little bit. I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe
I don't know.
we'll do it like but we won't, maybe we'll wear masks like Kanye like the whole time.
Yeah.
Let's just wear
Christ
costumes.
masks.
Yeah, Christ mask. I like
Yeah.
that.
just like eye holes and little slivers from the mouth.
Yeah, what if we just have like cardboard things in front of the camera and we just like have a hole for our eyes and our
Oh
mouth?
no.
That's the whole thing. We just have like Alex written on one side and Jesse written on the cardboard box, or in like thick, no,
I
it'd be
think
thick and
people would
butter.
tune off very quickly.
I don't know, man. The internet seems stranger shit than that. I don't
That's true.
know.
All right, everybody. We love you. Episode 100. Bye bye. 99. 100 soon. Bye.
Bye.